Episode 10 of the podcast, we're going to talk about how do I use positive reinforcement for a dog who's a jerk? We're going to muck through that. And then we're going to talk about how to set the mood, ways that we can change the environment to make a dog more comfortable. This is the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. How am I supposed to use reward-based training if this dog is a jerk? If this dog is aggressive? If this dog is giving me a hard time and has for years? I know that many of us have that question. I also hear things, I still hear things about how I hear rewards that don't stop behavior. And that is very true. Rewards do not stop bad behavior. That's not what a reward is for. A reward is for encouraging good behavior. So I started off my grooming career when I was not a positive reinforcement trainer. Definitely didn't have an idea that I was really stressing the dogs out. More force does not make it easier. I had dogs that were constantly a problem. They were getting a little bit better, maybe, but not really. I wasn't making much progress. But now that I know that there is a way to make progress, it's my job to do it. Right? And that's what this podcast is for, is to help all of us realize, oh, we can make progress with those dogs. My experience, I think that a healthy dog can be taught to be a safe dog. Right? Even if they don't like us, they can be taught to be safe. When there are health problems, sometimes we have some problems working around, other types of behaviors that are involved with a health problem. But we can still always work toward fear-free, like just letting them be comfortable with it, because aggression is usually fear-based, or I'm not comfortable with this. But that's a type of fear. That's a type of stress. They're getting anxious. They're getting stressed out. They're really sick of it. I'm sure they think we're jerks too. I'm positive back in the day there were plenty of dogs that thought I was a total jerk. And okay, yeah. When we continue to fight together, yeah, that's the impression that's left. So first thing is I want you to remember that we're going to use rewards because we're also telling our customers about our safety policy. We're not putting up with unsafe problems, right? We don't have to. That's not a hairdresser's job. We're pet stylists. We're dog groomers. We do not need to get hurt. We don't need to push dogs to the point where they're going to hurt themselves or hurt us. We don't need all that problem. We need to explain to our customers that we have a solution set for them. And that's part of helping this dog. We're going to keep the pressure off of the dog so that we're not fighting with them. And we're going to work with customers who are on board with our safety policy. In a previous episode, we talked about Bijou's Law, but what that really means is that people are trying to get licensing for groomers, mandatory licensing, because they're worried about their dogs getting hurt in the groomer. And when do dogs get hurt? When they're fighting with us, when they're hard to handle, when they're being pushed into trims that they aren't ready for, or they have health problems, or, there are a lot of ways that dogs get hurt. The verdict is out. People want their dogs to be safe. And so if we present it as a safety policy, it's very hard for an owner to say, I don't care about your safety policy. Just put the trim on the dog and who cares, right? Like, that's not your customer, right? They should be caring about the safety policy. They want their dog to be safe. They want us to be safe, and that's their responsibility too. It really is. Keep in mind, we are not responsible for their dog's healthcare needs. We're responsible for doing a really nice groom. So we are part of hair care, nail care, ear care. We do a lot of great things for a dog health-wise, but we are not necessary in that dog's life if the owner doesn't want to comply or get involved with teaching their dog to be good. But it doesn't stop behavior by giving rewards, right? We want to set up the environment to create success, and that's part of explaining a safety policy. Your owner should know that their dog has trouble with something. Get them on board with fixing it. We know that fighting a dog creates more fighting. Practice makes perfect, right? So how many dogs are like, oh yeah, I'm on to this. I'm not even going to let you get the muzzle near my face because I know the next step. You jerk. And we're stuck in this loop of you're a jerk. No, you're a jerk. No, you're a jerk. So now I want you to take a closer look at the actual behavior. So that dog that you see is aggressive and that you can't stop behavior with rewards, what is the behavior you're actually thinking about? So think about a particular dog. And owners, maybe you're thinking about your own dog. That's great. Awesome. I want owners on here thinking about their own dog, right? Take a look at the actual behavior, not the story. And in another episode, we talked about observing subjective and objective, right? So the story is he's aggressive, or he's a jerk, or he hates it. The behavior is very different. Is the behavior he freezes when I try to take him out of the crate? That he's not even interested in coming out of the crate to be picked up, and who knows what would happen if we got him on a table? Like, where do we see the behavior change? Is he good for most everything, but when we take out the nail clippers, he lunges for them or tries to dart away? Does he try to climb out of your arms while you're trying to trim his nails? Or does he bark and growl? Like, what is the behavior that you see, and when does it start? Because now you can use that data, those observations, instead of the story. You can use those observations to create something, a setup where that dog can be successful. So a starting point that a dog can handle means that you're going to find their comfort zone and gently expand on it. And that's really important. We want them to be comfortable because we are trying to avoid the fear response. In another episode, we talked about fear and how fear is a chemical reaction in your body. You don't really have a choice about how you react to fear once fear hits. We want to avoid fear. And even aggression is fear. It's discomfort. It's, I am not willing to do this. I'm kind of freaked out. Dogs don't become aggressive with things they're comfortable with, right? Like if I toss a tennis ball, I don't usually get a dog to attack me by tossing a tennis ball, right? Like they're comfortable with tossing tennis balls. Oh, okay. Taking the ball from them, perhaps. But it's not like this dog is just every step of the day, every time somebody interacts with them is aggressive, right? We have something, some little nugget to work with. And if we don't, they don't belong in a grooming shop, right? They belong with a trainer, a behavior consultant, a veterinarian, a veterinary behaviorist. Like they need somebody different than their groomer or maybe their owner to be working on it if they are at that point. But that's really pretty near feral. These are house pets. They should not be at a point where they can't have any sort of comfort zone. But once we have a point where they're comfortable, we gently expand it. We add things to increase that behavior. And that's what positive reinforcement is. Adding things, that's the positive, the plus, the adding of things to increase the behavior we're looking for, the behavior we're working on. And so what that could be is treats. It could be toys. It could be rewards like, okay, I'm going to pet you, or something that dog likes. Every dog likes something. But that's how positive reinforcement and rewards can make change. It's about making behavior change, not necessarily stopping a behavior. Like no amount of cookies is going to get a dog to, necessarily like grooming. We need to work on it in a way that helps them be less fearful. And when we use rewards, we're always trying to set them up to be good. And if you're controlling the environment, if you're making a setup that's trying to expand their comfort zone, don't worry about perfect grooms. Don't fight with the dog. Don't push too far. It's already part of your safety policy. You don't have to feel the pressure to make this dog beautiful. That's not your job at the moment if this dog has a history of being the quote unquote jerk, right? Which is a story. Jerk is a story. Doesn't tell you anything about the actual behavior. So as you build a behavior that you do want and you reward what you do want, we're avoiding the fear response. We're teaching the good behavior. And you know what? That creates change. You don't see as much of the bad behavior. Okay? It's a process, but that's the training point of view. So while people say, well, rewards don't stop behavior, I still hear this quite a bit. And I think that they're assuming that what we're doing is just adding cookies to a dog who's being bad, which would actually increase doing the thing we don't want, right? Adding cookies while he's doing, is likely to just increase doing. Like, oh, I can act up and growl at you and still get cookies. All right, I mean, it might make him feel a little bit better about it. But with a dog with a big problem, we want to actually use operant conditioning. And there's another podcast about that. I know it's kind of techie, but that's where we're actually expecting the dog to be able to interact with us, not simply adding something good, which is more Pavlovian, right? Remember Pavlov and the dog salivating when they hear a bell, right? If a dog already has a history of being aggressive, that's not the best setup for them, because they're just going to look at you like, no, I still don't trust you, man. But with puppies, we often add things like, hey, let's just add something yummy to chew on. What do you want to chew on while we do this? Isn't that fun? Because they don't have a history of hating it, and they aren't yet fearful. So if we can make it jollied up and like, hey, look at this. But that's classical conditioning. That means that they're learning that, oh, we're doing grooming, and that's kind of tasty. I love grooming and snacks. But that doesn't stop an unwanted behavior. What learning does is we start teaching them there was nothing to be afraid of anyway, and then we start building some new behaviors, and we start helping them feel comfortable with things that they used to think were pretty scary. And that's really where behavior change happens. And I really want to stress that because I know it's a tough concept. I know sometimes I still hear, like I said, people saying, oh, rewards don't stop a behavior. But you know what? If yelling at a dog worked, none of us would be here. Yeah, pause and think about that. Because really, has it ever worked for you? You said, knock it off. And the dog's like, oh, sorry, Chrissy. I'll never do that again. I'm totally comfortable with grooming now. Like we've all tried yelling, right? We've all tried a good solid knock it off. And that doesn't create a dog who is comfortable with grooming. And being comfortable with it is actually much more lasting change than simply putting up with something you're uncomfortable with. I know it's a lot to unpack, and I'd like to hear some opinions on this, so please feel free to contact me. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Let's talk about setting the mood. How do we control the environment and keep all these dogs fairly comfy? If you're an applied behavior analysis geek, those are our antecedents, right? If you control the environment, you're also controlling the behaviors around them. Kind of cool. But there are sights, there are smells, there are sounds, and human attitudes that set the stage for a grooming session, a vet visit, or even home care. So let's talk a little bit first about human attitudes. They're really important. Dogs react to us. When we're in a good mood, the dogs notice. When we're stressed or angry, they also notice. And our own attitudes can lend a whole new level of comfort or stress to a grooming situation, or to home care, or to a vet visit. I'm going to give you a human example here. When I was in junior high, I had braces, and going to the orthodontist visit was often painful and uncomfortable, right? It's really not something fun you look forward to. So I think that's kind of a parallel to grooming. While we try not to do anything painful, it's uncomfortable. It's tedious. It's not something they want to do. It's a lot like going to the dentist. But when I went to the orthodontist office, a bunch of like junior high school kids really was most of their customers. They were trying really hard to make it a fun environment. And I want us to think about parallel that with our grooming sessions and vet visits. They were buddying up with us, right? They tried to make it a little bit fun. They tried to connect with us. They kept track of things. I mean, I'm sure they didn't remember that I play flute, but they were looking in their records and saying, okay, how is this affecting your flute playing? And they were trying to engage us in a way that you felt like everything was going to be okay, even though something uncomfortable is happening, right? So again, thinking about the orthodontist, any sense of dread that I felt was only when something was going to hurt. And I always knew when that was going to happen, and they made sure I was ready. Okay, are you ready? This part's going to sting. Are you ready? Right? And that's kind of what I'm trying to get people to do with their dogs. Be thinking more about, are you ready? Give them the chance. A previous recording, we talked about our dogs sometimes just not ready. Is it a refusal, or is it an I'm not ready signal? So they made it a really fun environment as best they can, with something that's uncomfortable. I really want you to think about that from a grooming point of view, that there are a lot of things that dogs just don't enjoy doing. I don't expect them to love being groomed, but you know what? I connect with them and I want them to know I really like them. So the dogs that I groom, I mean, I'm house call groomer, so I go to their house. They greet me at the door like I'm family, and we have fun together before we get started. Even if they don't, enjoy grooming, they might get on the table and just kind of check out. But that's the posable action figure we've talked about before. The dog who's just like, all right, I'm going to let you position me anywhere we need to. And then when we're done, we play again. So that their lasting impression is my groomer really likes me and she tries to keep me safe and she tries to take care of me. So that's part of setting the tone, setting the mood, controlling our environment, making these dogs feel like we're safe, right? Now, sights. Some of the sights in a grooming shop are things that we can think about and think about maybe making some changes to. So, watching another dog being scared can be really scary. Thinking back again to junior high school kids in an orthodontist's office, if one kid was crying, it kind of made all of us a little cringy, like, oh, that's right. Was that something he's gonna do to me? you know, Maybe you were fine a minute ago, but you're like, oh, he's having bands put on his back teeth, and he's making him cry. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry too. It's gonna hurt, right? I know I'm anthropomorphizing, but I think it's important to draw a parallel because a dog watching another dog being stressed out can be really stressful. Okay. Another one of the sights is that for some dogs, a view out a window or a view to where people are coming and going can be overstimulating, and sometimes a good overstimulating, like just overly playful, or sometimes it's um, a protective kind of, I hate it when people walk past the door, like his at home, they're barking at the mailman kind of an attitude. But I want you to think about, okay, are there times where, turning the dog's cage or the crate in such a way that they don't have full view of something that's going on to limit what they're viewing that dog finds stressful, that dog reacts to. It might not be for every dog, but sometimes grooming in the far corner of the room can be helpful for some dogs. I remember working in one grooming shop, and there were like 5 different grooming stations, and the one furthest away was less worrisome for some of the dogs. Like it just wasn't as overstimulating way back there in the corner near the air conditioner. Like there was a whole different kind of droning sound near them, and they were a little bit more relaxed. So we can limit some of the sights in ways that are creative. Maybe it's a matter of, a little bit of a curtain, right? But think about that's part of setting the mood and setting the tone. Now we also have smells. Now I know for myself, there are a couple of shampoo smells that bring me right back to a particular job that I worked at in the late 90s. Like if I smell Mr. Crystal's shampoo, I instantly just get these like really nice memories of like, oh, I remember that job back when I worked there and that was such a nice place to work, right? So smells do that for us. But if it's a smell that makes you filled with dread, right? I kind of wonder if sometimes the dogs are going to do a little bit better for us while we try to retrain them. If we have a dog with a long history, even if we just change up the smell of some of the products we're using, why not give it a go, right? Harmless, but could help in a large degree. And that's kind of cool, right? And then there are also some smells that some of us use. There are some pheromone products. Adaptil makes a wall plug-in, and it's a pheromone, and it's meant to make a dog relax. It's not a medication. Pheromones are based on dog biology, but it kind of smells like their mama back when they were nursing, and it's this really, really good feel-good feeling. And you know what? I have found one. It's made by Sentry. It's a tube of a gel, and I kind of put it up near a dog's nose to see if they're interested in it. So if they're interested in it, I'll smear a little bit next to their nose. If they're not particularly interested in like getting into it, I put it on my hands, on my table, and on the grooming loop. So there's a way to have those smells nearby that could be comforting and are harmless. Why not, right? Now, another smell that some people use are essential oils, but I would say you have to ask first. There are dogs who will react to an essential oil. They can be quite strong. So if, as a house call groomer, I ask owners, and sometimes I use like a little bit of lavender, mist some lavender. But if you're going to do something like that in a grooming shop setting, I don't know. I would talk to the vet, find out, because a dog with other issues might be very sensitive to that. We're going to talk about sounds. We already talked about the sights and the smells and human attitudes. So now when we talk about sounds, music can be really helpful for some dogs. I find that it's when we turn on dryers, turn on clippers, and turn on vacuum cleaners. It's the on and off, the loud to loud to quiet that gets most dogs going. So sometimes I actually leave my vacuum on, even though I'm not using it at that moment, just to lessen the whole abrupt changes. But music can be really helpful. Now, they do make some specific calming music for dogs. I instantly think of Through a Dog's Ear, which is classical music. But there's the driving edition, which is the only one I can work with because the regular one, Through a Dog's Ear, just puts me to sleep. The driving edition is at least a little bit to make sure that the person driving isn't going to fall asleep. Whole Tones has a calming music for dogs, and that one's pretty good. I really like theirs. It does not put me to sleep. But even if you're putting on something to sing along, mood is very different when we have music going. And it can also help deaden some of the sounds around us, such as the dog who's barking in the background. Little Mr. Broccolini saw a post box. Yep, I know the postman came by. But when we have something going in the background, that can make some of those starts and stops a little bit less. But also because music affects our mood, now we're also helping with some of the human attitude. So there are a lot of ways to help with creating a mood, a setting that is conducive to feeling safe, because we are trying to make them feel safe and that everything is fine. And so I want you to kind of incorporate some of this stuff. You might have to listen to it a few times, but be thinking about, how can I help connect with this dog, make them feel like everything's fine, like I'm their buddy if I can. What sights can I limit? What smells may I add? What kind of sounds may I add? And so one of the sounds too, I tend to hum and sing while I'm working. So it's a little bit like Snow White singing to the woodland creatures. And I know it's obnoxious, but I do. But you know what? When I'm humming and singing, I can physically feel dogs relaxing into my hand. They really respond to it. So I gave you a lot to think about. Have fun with it. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. I'm also happy to come to you if you're near my area in southern New Hampshire.